Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. So, another court appearance for Donna Adelson on Monday, and doesn't seem like she's pleased with her accommodations, her surroundings, and the way she's being treated in jail right now. And some of this arraignment had to do with that, had to do with Donna Adelson's accommodations. Some had to do with other things. She appeared in Leon County courtroom Monday for a murder arraignment from the 2014 shooting death of her former son-in-law, Florida State University law professor Dan Markell. And it was clear that she was not pleased how things were going. You could see that in her body language. Donna Adelson, she's now 73 years old. She shook her head and smirked as a jail official explained that she was in solitary confinement because she allegedly made comments that she wanted to die and also made suicidal statements on jailhouse calls. At one point, Judge Stephen Everett had enough of Adelson's commentary. Adelson could be heard saying, "Oh my God," as the judge discussed the defendant's allegedly expressed plan to kill herself by taking sleeping pills. So this saga continues. So folks, hang on, and we're going to go much more deeply into this. This is Police Off the Cuff. You like true crime from an off-the-cuff fashion, you're in the right place. Police Off the Cuff.
There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael by there.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
Hello, folks. So we all know that Donna Adelson was arrested on November 13th, actually, at Miami International Airport, trying to flee the country with her husband, Harvey Adelson. Now, one of the reasons she was trying to flee the country to Vietnam, a stop in Dubai, then to Vietnam, because they do not have extradition to the United States. So she felt that if she could get over to Vietnam, it would be much more difficult for the authorities to prosecute her. And you see the picture on the screen. In the middle, of course, is her former son-in-law, Daniel Markell, who was killed in 2014. And to the right, Charlie Adelson, who was just sentenced today. And I'll speak upon that later on. So because she tried to flee the country, obviously any consideration also there would be no bail consideration anyway, because this is a capital murder case. This is a murder for hire case. So there's no consideration for bail. But even more so, she's a flight risk because she showed an intention to flee the country. To another place that does not have Vietnam extradition treaty with the United States. And even though they don't have an extradition treaty, that does not mean it's impossible for someone that flees to Vietnam for them to be ordered to come back, ordered them to get back into the country. That could still happen. So she was mistaken, I believe, if she thought that she was just going to flee the country with her husband, Harvey, to her left right there, and going to live happily ever after in Vietnam. I don't believe that was going to happen. But that, of course, was what she intended. And the thing was, what's amazing about this case is how much they spoke on telephones, not realizing, or perhaps realizing, that there are others listening. And all of those conversations are going to be, or were to be, especially in the trial of Charlie Adelson, used against them. And this is one of the reasons that she is being treated the way she's being treated in jail, because she indicated an intention of committing suicide. So that's one of the reasons. Let me play a little bit this from Court TV. They'll speak about her court appearance on Monday.
Than the last time she had a first appearance in front of a judge. She was only remote, but now she walked in with handcuffs on, and she looked very erect in the way that she walked in, rather confident, a little bit hunched over when she sat in the chair talking to her attorneys, but completely engrossed in these arguments. So other than entering her plea today, she had an emergency motion that was on the record with the judge, and this was the time to hear his decision and to hear these arguments. And it all has to do with where she's being kept in the jail, what unit she's being kept in. Here's a look at a bit from that emergency motion where it talks about her being moved to the infirmary under direct observation by officials. She was then placed in a small solitary unit with a toilet and a sink and a mattress on the floor and a dirty blanket. This is what her defense is alleging. They're saying she had requested a book or a Bible.
I love how everyone, once they go to jail, they all of a sudden become super religious, and this was no accident, even with Donna Adelson. Put it back on.
Forced to eat food with her hands. So today was all about trying to get her either a psych evaluation ordered
So they were requesting a psych
by the judge, a new unit inside of the Leon County Jail, or to get her released to house arrest was another one of the requests by the defense. So again, she was leaning into these arguments, even had some audible reactions to her attorney, Marcel Dacaso, who was making those arguments on her behalf. And then
so
sort of for the state or for the jail, you had the attorney for the Leon County jails and really jails across the state, Greg Toomey, and also Norman Mack, the chief deputy of the detention center. Take a listen.
We are now on day 22 of direct observation. Mrs. Adelson continues unable to participate in her defense. She's not permitted any papers. I cannot mail her anything. I did have a call with her on Friday, but only because Mrs. Kappelman facilitated it for me. And on that call, it was not a private call. Ms. Adelson was forced to put me on speakerphone with guards listening. There is just no way that Ms.
So she's really
Adelson can prepare for her defense in this manner.
There is no impediment to her speaking with her lawyer, seeing her lawyer, over and above using a tablet. The tablet has a headset that can be used as a ligature. When she was booked into the jail here, she made a statement that she wanted to die.
So some of the reasons they're citing why they're giving her this special attention really is because she indicated an intention of committing suicide. So this attorney for the jail spoke about that she's really not allowed to have a tablet because the tablet has headphones, and the wire could be used as a ligature for someone to hang themselves with. And that's why she's not allowed to have that. The other thing was her attorney spoke about how she's not allowed to communicate with her. She's not allowed to have paper to assist in her own defense. So these are all things that they were discussing in court on Monday.
Now, before she was arrested in Miami, she also had a phone call with her son, who's obviously in jail here. 25-minute phone call. I personally listened to it. She very clearly spoke about a plan to kill herself using sleeping pills.
One moment, Ms. Adelson, please keep your comments to yourself. Let your lawyer argue on your behalf.
Spoke of a plan to kill herself if she could not escape the country before arrest. That was known to the folks in this jail when she got here. That's why she's on watch. The mental health professionals see her every day. They are not satisfied that she's safe.
So
Do you know if Dr. Sapp has examined Ms. Adelson?
She advised me that she spoke with her on different occasions or been around the area while another clinician was talking with her.
Well, how is so how is Dr. Zapp supposed to determine whether Mrs. Adelson can be removed from direct observation if she doesn't evaluate her?
From what I was advised, she has evaluated her and also other members of her staff.
Chief Mack, would it surprise you if Dr. Zapp has not evaluated Mrs. Adelson at all?
I couldn't say that I wouldn't think that she would tell me something that wasn't true.
Do you have a report from Dr. Zapp establishing, I'm sorry.
I wouldn't take, because of HIPAA laws, I don't necessarily get involved with medical paperwork of that nature.
And Chief Mack, knowing that you had to come here today possibly to testify, did you inquire how many times Dr. Zapp had met with Mrs. Adelson?
I did not, because
You see, Donna Adelson, as the attorney is arguing, she's mouthing her own answers, and this got the judge a little PO'd. He at one time had to tell her to chill out and to let her attorney do the arguing for her. That's what she pays her attorney for. But these are arguments that, obviously her attorney, Marisol Descalzo, is her attorney. She's making these arguments, obviously, because there is absolutely no consideration of bail. This is, again, a capital murder case. There's no consideration that she could even remotely get bail, because she's facing charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And the prosecutors, they said they had emails showing that Donna Adelson hated Dan Markel, and her emails with her daughter Wendy, Markel's ex-wife, showed the grandmother was desperate to find a way to overcome the murdered law professor's adamant opposition to relocating his sons from Tallahassee to South Florida. And we look at this whole cast of characters here we're looking at on your screen. And of course, the Charles Adelson, Catherine Magbanua, Sigfredo Tuto Garcia, Luis Tata Rivera. Those are the folks that have been convicted. Well, Luis pled guilty and he took a plea bargain. Donna Adelson now is the next one up. And we look at this chart and we see Harvey Adelson and Wendy Adelson. And we wonder, could they be next? Could they be thrown into, as my esteemed colleague Phil Grimaldi would say, could they be thrown into the trick bag next? A probable cause affidavit detailed the contents of jail calls from Donna Adelson, allegedly made after Charlie Adelson's conviction, including her plans for suicide. And that's what we're talking about today. Jail calls from Charles Adelson guilty verdict include multiple calls in which Donna Sue Adelson is telling Charles Adelson that she's getting things in order, creating trust, and making sure her grandchildren are taken care of. That's according to the affidavit. Donna discusses plans for suicide, but also discusses plans to flee to a non-extradition country. And Donna Sue Adelson has considerable financial resources to accomplish this. So that is what they're so concerned with in this hearing. That she did voice an intention of committing suicide, and that is, of course, what they are so concerned with at this point.
They actually see everyone that's on direct daily, and it's more than just Miss Adelson.
Chief Mack, are you aware that Dr. Zapp has never evaluated or met with Mrs. Adelson?
So she's claiming she never met with this
I can only
doctor.
go what I've been told by this staff.
So this is all whether the jail doctor had evaluated her, determined whether or not she's fit to be in a certain part of the jail. This is all part. She doesn't like her
Chief Mack, are you aware that Dr. Pugh is the only
Um,
psychiatrist that has seen Mrs. Adelson, and that was on November 27th?
I didn't get that
So I'm having a little bit of problem with the audio
information
here.
as to who saw her. All I needed to know, or all I need to be privileged to, is that she needed to be on direct observation.
In a word there, the defendant expressive. She almost seemed that she wanted to make eye contact with Chief Mack to make sure he.
So yeah, she's obviously unhappy, Donna Adelson, with this, and the very next day, of course, is the today, which would be today, is the day that Charlie Adelson was sentenced, and he was sentenced to life without parole and 2 other consecutive sentences of 30 years to life. So life without parole plus 60 years to life. I think that's the court made a point that I don't think he's ever getting out, And he did make a statement, though, because he was asked to speak to the court. And this was after the family of Daniel Markell gave an impact statement. And this is what Charles Adelson said when he was asked to speak to the court.
You do not have to speak. However, this is your opportunity if you choose to do so.
I do.
You may stand.
Same. I would just like to say that I maintain my innocence.
Well,
that was rather brief. He's a man of few words, I don't think most dentists like to.
Please rise. I'm now going to pronounce the sentence. With the jury having found you guilty of all 3 counts that you were charged with in your indictment of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation to commit first-degree murder, I am going to adjudicate you guilty of all 3 at this time, and you are going to be sentenced as follows. As to count 1, the first-degree murder count pursuant to section 782.04 and 775.082 Florida statutes, you are sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of release or parole. As to count 2, you are going to be sentenced consecutively to 30 years in the Department of Corrections for conspiracy.
So that was the first 30 years to life for conspiracy. And you heard that he was sentenced for the first charges to life without parole. And again, I'm having problems with this video playing. And then he gets sentenced with the second set of charges to another 30 years.
To commit first-degree murder. As to count 3, you are going to be sentenced to 30 years in the Department of Corrections consecutively for solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The credit for time served that applies in this matter is how much?
597.
597 days will be applied as credit for time served in this case. If the clerk could please read all fees and costs that would apply as well.
Well, not only is he getting, he's getting fined also. So you're getting life without parole. I'm going to assess you the court costs too. So
$2,100 is a fine pursuant to Florida statute 775.083. $105 is a 5% surcharge required by Florida statute 938.04. $20 is a court cost pursuant to Florida statute 938.06. Crime Stopper Trust Fund. $3 is a court cost pursuant to Florida statute 938.01, subsection 1. Criminal Justice Trust Fund, $50 pursuant to Florida Statute 938.03, Crimes Compensation Trust Fund, $225 pursuant to Florida Statute 938.05, Local Government Criminal Justice Trust Fund, $2 of the court cost pursuant to Florida Statute 938.15, County Criminal Justice Education, County Code 7-26, $50 of the court cost pursuant to Florida Statute 775.083, subsection 2, County Crime Prevention, $3 of the court cost pursuant to Florida Statute 938.19, Teen Court Assessment, Mayor County, Florida Code 7-28, $65 of the court cost pursuant to 9.
I wonder if he's even listening to this. I think, he's just been sentenced to life without parole, 2 other sentences of 30 years to life. And you think he gives a damn about these fines? He's going to prison for the rest of his natural life. And I'm sure, it's written all over his face that, this is bad news, obviously.
Section 939.185, County Additional Court Cost, County Code 7-24, with a total of $2,623.
Mr. Rauschbaum, is there any lawful objection for you to raise to the assessment as announced by the clerk?
No, Your Honor.
Those amounts will be assessed at this time. Ms. Kappelman, I will reserve 90 days of jurisdiction to address the cost of prosecution in this case. By statute, the state is entitled to the 100, but this is in excess of the 100 is what you're referring to.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. 30 days to appeal both your conviction and now your sentence. Mr. Adelson, you are going to be fingerprinted today. And from here, you are going to be sent to the Department of Corrections to begin serving your sentence. Mr. Rauschbaum, if you please can timely file the notice of appeal so that way there is no issues regarding any review of the conviction itself. Does either party have anything further to raise to the court before we finish for today?
Nothing from the state. No, Your Honor.
We are in recess. Mr. and Mrs. Markell, have a good day. Thank you for being available so you can provide your victim impact statements. Have a good day.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, that is the sentencing of Charlie Adelson, and I'm sure it's practically automatic. I would think that he will be filing an appeal in all these cases. Appeal will be filed. But this case makes it is even more difficult because when you look at this whole cast of characters now, and the attorney for the mother is a woman named Marisol Descalzo, and the rest of the family, or Charles Adelson, has a different attorney. So there can be a little bit of a conflict between attorneys because obviously Charles Adelson has just been convicted. His mother, Donna Adelson, has yet to be charged. Well, she's yet to go to trial. Excuse me. She's been arrested. She's yet to go to trial. And Harvey Adelson and Wendy Adelson have not yet been charged, have they? And I think that down the road, many of us see the real distinct possibility that Wendy Adelson is going to be charged here. So you see the flyer on the screen. Donna Adelson back in court wants better jail conditions. Charlie Adelson sentenced, and we just watched his sentence, and how horrific is that? But what he did was horrific. But just to watch someone that was once a real contributor to society throw his whole life away, and he did that, and members of his family may join him in prison. Not like one big happy family, but because this conspiracy is real, and it goes back to 2014. And I suppose I should really be much more sympathetic, and I am, to the family of Dan Markell and to his family. And how about his 2 boys, the boys that Wendy Adelson and Dan Markell had together, and what were the source of this friction, and were the real source of this the contentious divorce that one part of the family, the Adelsons, thought that they had the money, the power to just take this situation and correct it through illegal means, through having Dan Markell murdered. That's a horrendous situation. I'm going to play a little bit more of this from Court TV. We'll watch the judge here speaking in the courtroom.
And Sarah Catherine Dugan for the state.
Marisol Descalzo on behalf of Donna Adelson, who's present in court and seated to my left.
Mr. Pimentel, Mr. Toomey, go ahead.
Greg Toomey, Your Honor, for both the Sheriff's Office and yesterday, the medical provider from jail.
Those attorneys represent the sheriff's office on behalf of obviously the jail to show that what they're doing, the restrictions they're putting upon Donna Adelson. First of all, some of them aren't even true. Secondly, they're necessary because, again, to go back to the point that she indicated, an intention of committing suicide.
Sheriff's Office General Counsel James Finney.
All right. For everyone that is observing on Zoom, please do not interfere with the hearing. Of course, you may observe as to everything that takes place. Mr. Scalzo, I've reviewed your emergency motion to enjoin the jail. Is there any further argument or testimony that you wish to take in support of your motion?
Your Honor, I'll just add to supplement to my motion, which was filed last week, that we are now on day 22 of direct observation. Mrs. Adelson continues unable to participate in her defense. She's not permitted any papers. I cannot mail her anything. I did have a call with her on Friday, but only because Mrs. Kappelman facilitated it for me. And on that call, it was not a private call. Ms. Adelson was forced to put me on speakerphone with guards listening. There is just no way that Mrs. Adelson can prepare for her defense in this manner.
All right, there is one question that I had specifically as to this issue. And I noticed within your pleading that you had quotes from your client and also some observations of what has been taking place with the correctional staff. Are you alleging that you have no ability to access your client or that there is limited contact with your client?
No, Your Honor, I'm not saying that there is no ability. The direct observations that are contained within my motion were not observed by myself, but Daniel Rashbaum, Charlie Adelson's attorney, had a visit with Charlie Adelson, and he was able to swap it out for Miss Donna Adelson the week of, I think, November 27th or 28th. So he was able to have that conversation with her in person. I've had a conversation with her, like I said, over the phone. I have been told that I can do a 60-minute increment visit with her in person. There is no video visitation ability. So I would say that my ability to meet with her is limited. It's not non-existent. However, my ability to share, for example, discovery, paperwork, the motion I filed with Ms. Adelson is non-existent because she's not permitted to have paper.
Very well. We'll take up the other aspect of this in a moment, actually, which deals with the level of confinement and what is going on with it. Ms. Kappelman, does the state have any argument to make concerning this matter?
The state would defer to Mr. Toomey, who's here to speak on those matters that I think you're addressing right now.
Very well. Mr. Pimentel, Mr. Toomey.
Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon.
As far as this particular issue goes, there is no impediment to her speaking with her lawyer, seeing her lawyer, over and above using a tablet. The tablet has a headset that can be used as a ligature. Otherwise, she's free to enter the jail. Chief Mack is here. He's assured me that they can have a visit. I don't understand the problem that is perceived, but there is no impediment to an attorney-client visitation. Am I correct?
The first question, we'll have Chief Mack give some testimony so that way we have a clear record. But the level of confinement and also the current restrictions that are in place, are these because there were at some point statements alluding to self-harm during the jail phone calls?
And at booking here. When she was booked into the jail here, she made a statement that she wanted to die. Now, before she was arrested in Miami, she also had a phone call with her son, who's obviously in jail here. 25-minute phone call. I personally listened to it. She very clearly spoke about a plan to kill herself using sleeping pills.
She keeps commenting, in a low voice to herself, "Oh my God," as this attorney for the sheriff's department is speaking, as if what he's saying is not true.
One moment, Ms. Adelson, please keep your comments to yourself. Let your lawyer argue on your behalf.
Spoke of a plan to kill herself if she could not escape the country before arrest. That was known to the folks in this jail when she got here. That's why she's on watch. The mental health professionals see her every day. They are not satisfied that she's safe. And it's up to them to decide it.
I'll give you an opportunity to respond, Mr. Scalzo. Mr. Toomey, one more thing before we move on into taking Chief Mack's testimony. Is there a specific procedure that the jail has for dealing with inmates with a threat of self-harm? Chief Mack, let me swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, sir.
If you can explain to me what the procedure is, Chief Mack, and from there, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Pimentel, I'll allow you to direct Chief Mack on any other matters you believe to be pertinent. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Anytime anyone makes a statement or we get evidence of someone wants to actually harm themselves, they're placed on direct observation. On direct observation, and receive a smock as well as a suicide blanket. And they're placed in an isolated room. It's just direct observation is what it really is. So we have a staff member outside the door that actually watches them around the clock, make sure they don't cause any harm to themselves.
When are the individuals who are under this status reevaluated for going back to general population?
That's done daily with yes care personnel.
Mr. Toomey, if you have any further examination for Chief Mack, I'll allow you to do so at this time.
Very briefly. Chief, is there a way for someone that's on suicide watch to have a direct visit with their lawyer?
Yes, we will pull the individual from the particular area that they are housed in and put them in an office with just the attorney. And
are there any remote capabilities for someone who is in the suicide or close watch observation wing?
Remote capabilities?
As far as phone calls, Zoom, tablets, things of that nature.
That person will be escorted to an office where we can actually see through the door, a glass window, and the officer will stand on the outside and just watch them from the outside.
And this is related to any concerns you have about self-harm?
Yes, that's because of we just keep constant view, keep them in vision to make sure that they don't.
So the whole thing with the privacy of meeting with your attorney, the ability to speak with your attorney in private, these are issues that have to be weighed against your security level. And in this case, the fear was that she was suicidal. So to leave her all alone and to allow her certain things, they had to consider against the risk of her taking her own life. So that's basically what they're talking about. And it's a whole hearing on this, besides the fact that at the beginning of this seemingly second arraignment, that she pled not guilty once again to the charges. But they're discussing this, and it's pretty important because her attorney, Maricel Descalzo, said, I can't share witness statements. I can't share discovery material with her because she's not allowed to have paper. So, what other way is there to share this stuff with her? Of course, in person, and it's always important for a defendant in a criminal trial to assist in their own defense. So that's what they're speaking to.
Anything, or pick up anything they can take back to the room and harm themselves later.
Mrs. Scalzo, do you have an examination for Chief Mack?
I do, Your Honor. May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you. Would you like me to proceed from here?
That's fine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief Mackey, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Mac. Let me see
Chief
that.
Mack. Chief Mack. Have you listened to this 25-minute call that Miss Adelson had before she was arrested?
Not in its entirety. I actually heard the portion where she was speaking of wanting to do a pact with her husband. I'm assuming that's who individual was.
Chief Mack, do you participate in the decision on whether Miss Adelson needs to remain on direct observation?
No, ma'am, that's a medical.
Okay, is the medical person that makes that decision a psychiatrist or another person?
That's Dr. Sapp.
So Dr. Sapp, is Dr. Sapp a psychiatrist?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if Dr. Sapp has examined Miss Adelson?
She advised me that she spoke with her on different occasions or been around the area while another clinician was talking with her.
Well, how is Dr. Zapp?
Sapp.
Zapp. How is Dr. Zapp?
Sapp.
Zach with a C, I'm sorry?
If you could spell it, Chief Mack.
S-A-P-P. Sapp.
Zapp. So how is Dr. Zapp supposed to determine whether Mrs. Adelson can be removed from direct observation if she doesn't evaluate her?
From what I was advised, she has evaluated her and also other members of her staff.
Chief Mack, would it surprise you if Dr. Zapp has not evaluated Mrs. Adelson at all?
I couldn't say that I wouldn't think that she would tell me something that wasn't true.
Do you have a report from Dr. Zapp establishing, I'm sorry.
I wouldn't take, because of HIPAA laws, I don't necessarily get involved with medical paperwork.
Well, a HIPAA law is the privacy that a person gets for their medical treatment. And the chief from the sheriff's department said he would not get paperwork for that because of the privacy in regards to the HIPAA laws. Folks, if you like true crime, real crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell. And if you want to contribute to this channel, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel membership with, count them, 5 different levels. And we appreciate all our subscribers, all our friends, all our fans that throughout this year have really made Police Off the Cuff, I think, a really good podcast. And our followers show us that all the time. This case is it's just so, when they say truth is always stranger than fiction, that's this case 100%. Whenever I put up this thing up on the screen with all of these people involved, and from one family, right? Look at that. 4 people, and then if you include Dan Markell, there's 5 people. Dan Markell, of course, is the victim here. But this whole plot, this whole bad plot destroyed many people. You know, of course, Dan Markell lost his life. His family totally destroyed by this. The Adelsons, look at it, it's not over with. You know, you may just see Harvey Adelson and Wendy Adelson get charged down the road. But for right now, all of these things have just destroyed this family. And we've seen, and she's on the picture of her on the screen right now, Wendy Adelson testifying. And some people have raised the question in the chat, where was Wendy Adelson on Monday at her mother's arraignment? She was nowhere to be seen, was she? Is that purposefully? Did an attorney say stay away, that you could be a distraction? And where was she Tuesday, today, this morning, when her brother, Charles Adelson, as you see a picture of him walking into jail, he was already sentenced. And if you're tuning in late, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Life without the possibility, plus 2 additional 30 to life sentences. So I don't think that we're going to see Donna Adelson treated any differently. I think she has an excellent chance of being convicted and spending the rest of her life in prison. She's 73 years old. How long is the rest of her life in prison? Right? And as we watch her in court, we could see that she's going down fighting, but her attorney is fighting these little issues right now. These little in regards to her, the space that she's confined in, the food she eats, the utensils she gets, phone calls, meetings with her, the ability to partake in her defense. No small thing, something, but this, something, as I said when I covered this on another time, this is jail, folks. This is jail. This is no fun. This is not a place that anyone wants to be in. This is jail. And you can argue all these little things. And this attorney, Marisol Descalzo, she wants to put this stuff and she wants to go right to trial. She's looking to jump right to trial on this. I don't know why she thinks that she's prepared right now to go to trial for this. Does she know that what the prosecution has? Does she know all their evidence already? Does she have a clear way that she's going to defend Donna Adelson? These are some of the questions I have, but it appears in court, she says, I'm ready to go in January. Well, let's set a date. So I'm a little suspect of that. It's a little strange that she's so ready to go.
Chief Mack, did you come to court today knowing that you were going to testify about whether or not Mrs. Adelson was on direct observation or not?
I knew I was supposed to be here, but the extent, I can't say I was privileged to told that I was going to actually testify, but I was prepared if I did.
Okay. And Chief Mack, knowing that you had to come here today possibly to testify, did you inquire how many times Dr. Zapp had met with Mrs. Adelson?
I did not, because they actually see everyone that's on direct daily, and it's more than just Miss Adelson.
Chief Mack, are you aware that Dr. Zapp has never evaluated or met with Mrs. Adelson?
I can only go what I've been told by Ms. Zapp.
Chief Mack, are you aware that Dr. Pugh is the only psychiatrist that has seen Mrs. Adelson, and that was on November 27th?
I didn't get that information as to who saw her. All I needed to know, or all I need to be privileged to, is that she needed to be on direct observation.
Chief Mack, do you have a list of all the times that Mrs. Adelson has been evaluated to determine whether she can be removed from direct observation?
Like I previously said, the only time I know they see them daily. And with that, I don't get any paperwork because I'm not a medical professional. I'm just making sure that her safety is taken care of.
Of course, Chief Mack, but just to be clear, I'm not asking whether you've seen any paperwork. I'm asking, in preparation for coming here today, were you advised how many times she had visits?
No.
Did you ask how many times she had been visited?
Not just knowing that she's being seen daily. I don't ask who actually saw her or what the conversation was pertaining to.
Chief Mack, if she is being visited daily, would there be a report of those visits?
Yes, it should be notes that they take.
To the
Daily.
Daily.
Right.
Okay. And Chief Mack, if what you're saying is what you were told is correct, there should be a report from Dr. Zapp and from whatever clinician is meeting her daily, right? About the evaluation.
Yes, I would assume it is.
And Chief Mack, did you know that Mrs. Adelson was actually arrested in Miami?
Yes,
Okay. And did you know that she spent some time in jail in Miami?
yes.
And did you know that she was there for about 5 days before she was transported to Leon County?
Should be something like that, yes.
And were you aware that she was at a county jail, very similar to the Leon County jail?
Well, I've never been to Miami's facility, so I can't tell you exactly what they do or what their policies are.
Okay. Chief Mack, were you aware that Mrs. Adelson was also on direct observation in Miami-Dade County for a period of time while she was there?
No, I didn't actually see any paperwork of it.
And Chief Mack, did anybody tell you, any of your clinicians tell you that actually Mrs. Adelson was evaluated by the same psychiatrist over a period of 72 hours in Miami, and she was released to general population?
I heard something of it, but I don't necessarily, I go by our contract provider when we doing anything in the health.
Who told you that she might have been evaluated in Miami and released to general population?
It was just something that was said. I think she may have spoken to an officer and said it.
Chief Mack, if she would have spoken to a clinician about that, you wouldn't know about that, right? Because that's HIPAA?
I wouldn't have known about it because I didn't speak to my clinicians. I just speak with them about Ms. Adelson in general.
What general conversations are you having about Mrs. Adelson with your clinicians, Chief Mack?
It's just how they evaluated her and where she is in her evaluation.
Okay.
She's going to be released on a step down program or anything of that nature.
Okay, can you tell us generally what you have been told? What was her evaluation like? When will she be stepped down? What's happening?
That's something that they will tell me when that occurs, in the way of when she feels as though that Ms. Adelson is at that stage in the process. She will inform me of the step down process.
Who is she?
That's either of the Yes Care personnel. Normally, it's Dr. Sapp, Dr. Pugh, or Ms. Smith, Ms. Richardson, Corey Richardson.
Okay, so it's Ms. Richardson, Dr. Pugh, and Dr. Zapp. Those are the three people you're communicating with about Mrs. Adelson's.
You know, this attorney has a problem pronouncing these names. She keeps saying Zap with a Z, and it's Sap. And she said puke. And one of the guy's name is Pugh, P-U-G-H. I'm just like, it's a little bit amusing. He told her about 4 times it's Sap with an S. He even spelled it S-A, it doesn't matter. But you could see that they're arguing over a very mundane thing right now. Yes, the clinicians are evaluating Donna Adelson to see whether or not she should be released from this higher level of supervision because she appeared to be, or she indicated an intention of committing suicide. And now, of course, all that's so far-fetched. It's not far-fetched, but she needs to be taken down a level so that she can see her attorney. She can get paperwork. She can assist in her defense. She can have utensils to eat with because now she has to eat with her hands. She's just in a single cell with a dirty blanket. That's what was explained to us. And when, look, as I've said numerous times, jail is a nasty place. It's not like a bed and breakfast. It's a nasty, nasty place that no one ever wants to go to. And prison is probably even worse, is worse. But no, jail sometimes can rival prisons as pretty bad too. But it's just, this whole hearing is to whether or not she should be, again, at a lower level of supervision because she did indicate an intention of committing suicide. Let's go back to it.
Treatment or step down process?
Periodically, I have a captain that actually is over medical, but I go through medical frequently.
Chief Mack, What did you do to prepare for today's hearing?
I actually just looked at some of the notes, even read the allegations concerning what Ms. Adelson was actually, I think it was more your allegations of what occurred in the facility.
What notes did you review before you came here, Chief Mack?
Other than looking at event logs, pretty much that was the extent of it.
What are event logs?
Event.
You know, he didn't do, obviously, Chief Mack, he didn't do much review. It just really didn't take a rocket scientist to say, yes, I looked at these reports, I looked at logs. She's right now under this level of supervision because a clinician has determined that she's still a risk. I mean, how many? And then she keeps harping. This is what attorneys do, but she keeps harping on how many reports did you read? How much preparation did you do?
Logs, what the officers said that actually on direct observation and documents what's happening while she's on direct observation.
Has there been anything that stood out to you in those event logs that the officers are leaving behind?
Amen.
Mr. Scalzo, before this continues on, I want this to remain focused on the subject matter of the motion itself. This is not a deposition. If you have further examination, I'll allow you to finish.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief Mack, are you aware that the only person that has been communicating or evaluating Mrs. Adelson since the one time on November 27th that Dr. Pugh saw her is Miss Richardson?
Richardson. I'm not aware of who.
Who's Dr. Pugh?
I know Miss Pugh seen her once, twice. I'm not sure, but it's just I'm getting information from my HSA and Dr. Sapp.
So to go back, you're saying Dr. Zapp has personally told you?
He just told us
Dr.
Zap. She
has
said
visited
Zap
Mrs. Adelson.
again.
She told me she was in the area with Miss Adelson. I don't know because I wasn't present as to what occurred during that meeting.
So what does it mean she's in the area? That she was around?
Yes, ma'am. That's what she advised me, that she was around.
Did you interpret that to mean that she evaluated Mrs. Adelson or that she was around Mrs.
I
Adelson?
interpreted it as she being present in the area.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Mr. Toomey, any redirect?
Perhaps two. Chief Mack, Ms. Richardson, is she a mental health counselor?
Yes, sir.
All right. If there were notes regarding the interaction between mental health and the defendant in this case, where would those notes be?
I'm going to be in a medical file.
Recognize this document as her medical file. It's moving around a bit. It's been a day.
Yes, I would say that was a medical file.
All right. Do you know if anybody's asked for these besides me?
No, sir.
That's all, Judge.
Chief Mack, you may take your seat. Mr. Toomey, the place I did want to start with there being a procedure in place is to assure that this is not random or arbitrary. Is there a procedure with regard to inmates with self-harm concerns or direct observation?
There is. It's standard in each and every jail. It is that until a mental health counselor or another mental health provider, like a psychiatrist or psychologist, is assured that that person does not possess or present a risk of self-harm, then they stay on that status. And they figure out where that status is by charting daily. A mental health counselor sees her.
Have you been able to provide a copy of either the policy or the patient file to Ms. Adelson's attorney?
I haven't been asked. I can tell you, before this motion was written, no one has asked for these medical records because I am the final arbiter in this state for this claim. I decide whether the records are going out.
Very well. Moving on to the second issue that this raises, Mr. Scalzo, there is a very specific separation of powers issue that this poses for the court. The sheriff runs the jail. I run my courtroom. The DCAs have been fairly clear when it comes to the court essentially directing medical care, what goes on in the facility. It's basically a no-no without an actual violation of the Constitution. What is my authority to actually step in the situation and give you what you're asking for?
Your Honor, I believe that there has been a violation of the Constitution here. There is, Ms. Adelson and I have not been permitted to talk behind this glass wall that they're speaking of. The first time we spoke was Friday. She was on speakerphone, I was on speakerphone, and she was sitting with a guard seated next to her. And the only way that that call was facilitated was because Ms. Georgia Kappelman was nice enough to call the jail and arrange it. I have called the jail repeatedly over the past 22 days, begging to be permitted to either speak to Mrs. Adelson or for Mrs. Adelson to speak to me, and no one responds. As to Mr. Toomey's response that nobody has called him, nobody has asked him for records, I tried calling the general counsel's office repeatedly in the past week to try to resolve this issue. I understand what's being said today in court, and like I said in my motion, I understand that there's separation of powers, and I understand that the court is limited in what they can do in directing the jail. But I think that one thing that Your Honor can do is, you have heard that the jail, and Mr. Toomey said, he's the arbiter in the state. All jails run the same. The jail in Miami-Dade County cleared Mrs. Adelson, a psychiatrist, a mental health professional that works for the state, that works for the Department of Corrections, has said that she is not required to be on direct observation. She comes here and all of a sudden that changes. So I feel that there's some sort of disconnect. And I think that there needs to be a third party evaluating her to make the determination. And I think that that's not an unreasonable ask. That's something that the jail can accept. And I think the state is not opposed to that. So that's what I'm asking the court to allow me to bring in my own mental health professional to evaluate Mrs. Adelson and make a determination whether or not she is a suicide risk, or for the jail to accept the determination or speak to the jailers in Miami-Dade County that observed her and made a completely different determination about her mental state.
Mr. Toomey, Mr. Pimentel, what administrative remedies are actually available to inmates absent the court stepping in?
That is a key question when it comes to injunctions. That's
Yes.
There are two means. First, that there's a grievance procedure in the jail that can and must be followed. Second, there is always civil suit, either in this courthouse or the fancy courthouse up the street. So there are legal avenues in place that preclude the entry of an injunction. There was something that was just said. I am not the arbiter for the state. I am for this client in the jails that they have in this state when it comes to sending out the medical records. It's either by release or by subpoena. The authority is there.
Mr. Pimentel, do you have anything further to argue on behalf of the sheriff?
Well, Your Honor, I need to put something on the record first. James Pimentel, General Counsel of the Sheriff's Office. I've been Sheriff McNeil's General Counsel for almost 7 years now. I've never heard from this attorney. I haven't heard from anyone representing this defendant. Any assertion, sir, that they've attempted to contact the Office of General Counsel. I have a paralegal. I have email. I've never been contacted by this defendant or this defendant's counsel.
Boom.
Very well.
The attorney wants all these things done, but yet is she doing her job? She never contacted these guys. They've never received any communication via cell phone, by email, by mail, no contact. So it's tough to have this attorney doing these, flips, wants everyone to jump through hoops for her, but yet she hasn't communicated with the counsel from the jail.
I'm going to make my findings as follows. As to the issue of there being a Sixth Amendment violation where there is no access by Ms. Adelson to counsel of record, I cannot find that. However, Ms. Adelson being able to confer with counsel privately, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Pimentel, is there an ability to make accommodation for that even in the observation wing?
Yes, Your Honor. We have a protocol, Your Honor.
Very well. What I would ask you to do then is please speak with defense counsel as to what accommodations can be made so she can visit with counsel privately as she prepares for her case. Obviously, there's a very voluminous amount of discovery that's already been provided by the state. Is that correct, Ms. Kappelman?
Yes, Your Honor.
She is going to need to be able to speak in private with her attorney and go through all documents, all records, all manner of evidence that the state is seeking to use as a part of its case in chief. Does she have ability to use either a computer or some form of multimedia while in direct observation?
Your Honor, she wouldn't be able to do it while in the direct observation cell, but we would make accommodations through security to make that occur.
Very well. According to the policy that you already have in place, when will her status as residing in direct observation be revisited?
Every day, Your Honor, on a daily basis.
Right, Mr. Scalzo, as to issuing an injunction against the jail, I do not believe I have the authority to do so. The District Court of Appeal rulings, and I'm specifically going to cite Bradshaw versus Sandler. This is found at 955 Southern 2nd, 1219, 4th DCA case from 2007. That specifically dealt with a trial court who ordered a defendant to be taken to a dentist of his choosing. Similar, by analogy, for me to allow Ms. Adelson to be seen by a psychiatrist or psychologist that is a third party is stepping on the separation of powers in that regard. Until there's been an exhaustion of remedies with regard to whatever internal procedure is available for her to avail herself of regarding grievances or other matters with the jail, an injunction is not something that I can entertain at this point. Did you wish to be heard further?
No, Your Honor, not on this topic.
Ms. Kappelman, did you have anything further you wish to argue on behalf of the state? Right, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Pimentel, and Chief Mack, if you can get with defense counsel, I think that will eliminate next time the need to have any hearings on a basis such as this. Obviously, Ms. Adelson wants to prepare for her trial. She is entitled to do so, but the sheriff runs the jail. I fully recognize that, and I respect that. Do you wish to be heard further?
Nothing further.
Right, let's move on to the matter of the arraignment, also while we were here this afternoon as well.
Excuse me?
You are excused.
Your Honor, before they're excused, I would like them to provide me, yes, their business card so that I may contact them. Thank you.
That's fine.
So this, folks, was Monday. Some people in the chat are saying this isn't live. No, it's not live. This occurred Monday. Again, Donna Adelson pled not guilty again at this little hearing. Some of the things that they decided was her accommodations. She obviously wasn't happy with that. The fact that she's still on a suicide watch, that she claims she hasn't seen mental health professionals that would have evaluated her, that she's unable to partake in her defense because she's not allowed to have paper. She's not allowed to have a tablet with the headphones because it's could be used as a ligature for someone to hang themselves. So all of these things were decided in the hearing. And as far as her attorney was saying, this was a violation of the Sixth Amendment. You heard that the judge ruled upon that, and that in fact was not the case. So very interesting. And if you listened earlier on, Charlie Adelson this morning was sentenced to life in prison without parole for the murder of his brother-in-law, Daniel Markell. 2 separate 30-year to life sentences, which equals 60 years to life, besides the life without parole. So that was Charlie Adelson this morning. So we're going to keep following this case with Donna Adelson. You could see she's somewhat animated. I can't imagine, what it's like for a 73-year-old to be in jail, facing a potential life sentence in prison, and that's in fact what she's looking at, and it just seems that this was something that could have been handled outside of a hearing, that they didn't need to specifically have a judge involved in this. You see, the district attorney, Miss Kappelman, really had almost nothing to say. It wasn't having any effect on the case that she will be bringing forth, the case that she'll be prosecuting. However, it was seemed like a showy type thing for the defense. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in today. This is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Appreciate all you guys. Have a great day, everyone, and be safe.
One episode just ain't enough.